All right. So just keep an eye there. Make sure it's going.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need some original opening music?
Do 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 do.
Do 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 do
Oh, we
do.
got eyes open.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Okay. All right. So this is a podcast, visual podcast, technically,
A conversation.
a conversation recorded of our birthing story, of his birth story.
Adonis LeKai.
Adonis LeKai. I'm gonna say his whole full name.
No, no.
Okay. So Adonis LeKai. So this is not a fertility story or a pregnancy story. It's just about him coming into the world over like the 2 or 3 days.
And we're doing this because
One, it's a long story, and you and I like to add all the details. And two, not everybody has time in one sitting to hear all the details.
it's true. There's a lot of details.
There's a lot of details. So if anyone is genuinely curious to know the whole story, they can listen to this, and he can listen to this when he's older.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of this, some of it's already faded, memory wise. Like what happened in which order consistently. So if
I wonder if that's the drugs or if that's the nature's drugs of
I think both.
trying to make the mother forget.
So I would like this just for our sake to hang on to.
It's a good story in that it's I think it peels back the curtain on how things can go when
Right.
you're going into labor and delivery.
It's just one way that this
One
can go.
way.
Yeah.
One way. But either way, no one really tells you. You can do all the classes and no one will tell you these details.
Everyone will say that everybody's story is different, and that's like the only consistent thing. So and I feel like even our story, which we should get into, it could have taken multiple paths. So this is just really one way.
There's definitely a multiverse of scenarios that could have happened with this.
Right. Okay, so jump into it.
Yeah. So he was due on the 28th,
I always said the 28th.
29th.
I like eighths. So he's due on the 28th.
Either way, it didn't turn out that way. Because of things.
It didn't happen. A lot of people were taking bets.
We had a lot of bets. We have a lot of people that like to gamble, officially and unofficially. So this was a fun way for folks to gamble, and especially with him being due at the end of August,
right.
Whether it's the 28th or 29th, whatever you agree on. I think with it being our first baby and the general mindset that first babies sometimes come early or often come early.
But often come late.
Also often come late.
Like everybody we polled who's given birth this year, no one came on time. Everybody was early or late.
And no one guessed. I don't think anyone guessed in September of all the guesses.
And maybe everyone stuck to August.
Maybe that's because people were anticipating like we were and wanted it to happen sooner. Wishful thinking.
Rooting for it to happen early.
But either way, it happened late. And you kind of had a feeling it was going to be late once we got to like the 25th, or 26th.
I just wasn't like feeling anything different, except discomfort, which pregnancy stuff. But I kind of by the weekend for sure, because Sunday is the 28th. By the weekend for sure, I was like, it's not happening.
So we actually had a nice, fun little date on the Saturday night before.
Yeah, we went out. We
were feeling good about ourselves. You were feeling in tune. You were like, this baby's not coming tonight, so let's go show off Mama's curves.
It was
one last time.
Big curves.
Yeah, we hit the casino, walked
I got
around,
hamburgers.
tight dress.
Ate some good smash burger.
Nope, it's Shake Shack.
Shake Shack, and I got the Shack Stack.
Shack Stack burger
The
from
mushroom.
Shake Shack. Smash Burger is a different location.
But it's the same style of burger preparation. It's like
Um,
a flatter patty
I'm not sure.
full of cheese and grease.
I've never worked at either of those establishments, but and also this video is not sponsored by either one of those restaurants, just so that we're clear. Um, but yeah, we had a burger. We actually bumped into a couple other people that were also due
Pregnant.
like right then. Um, some much smaller than us.
Some one person commented like she's about to pop. Like you better get her out of here.
But you were very in tune with your body to know that
Nope.
it wasn't happening. I was very impressed by that fact, by the way.
Were you?
I was.
Just, yeah. So Sunday, like we just hung out around the house.
We went to the pool.
Went to the pool. That was nice. Thank you. I forgot about that. And still like nothing.
Went to our taco stands.
Mm.
All week, all that week, we tried eating all the spicy foods in different cuisines that we could because we heard that spicy food triggers things. And I think that we were trying to do that because we wanted to be caught by surprise a little bit inherently.
Yeah,
I think
like
we wanted to
water breaking out of nowhere, like kind of crazy
like,
rush.
We wanted what Hollywood shows you how it goes down, but it's not always like that.
Mm-mm.
I'm not really sure whenever it is like that, to be honest, but
in Hollywood
maybe.
Movies. So we watched Top Gun. Did we watch the Top Gun movie that night? We watched something.
Maybe that was Top Gun. Yeah, it was because we had those tacos.
The
tacos and Top Gun. Maverick.
And then just kind of like settled in for the night.
Great movie. Also not sponsoring this video.
And then Monday came around and nothing. I wanted to go to the pool but ended up not. Just unable. Other things came up. Did stuff around the house. You worked.
Yeah, my situation was we were going to be induced. We were scheduled to be induced Tuesday night, so Tuesday was going to be, if nothing popped off, Tuesday was going to be my last full day of work before going on paternity leave starting on Wednesday. Because assuming we would be in the hospital Tuesday night, so Tuesday came and went, and we had no water breaking, so
each night leading up to Tuesday, and I think you'll recognize this too. I felt like we were saying goodnight to each other as like the last time we were saying goodnight, just us two. Right? For several nights in a row.
We had actually gotten that tip from a friend who said, enjoy whenever he's late, enjoy the like bonus time that you get as a couple.
Because we won't ever just be us anymore.
All right.
And we're not.
We're not. That's true. But it's okay.
Yeah, we don't mind. So each night, like almost a week before, like Wednesday night prior to all the way leading up to the actual Monday night going into Tuesday, because again the appointment was for Tuesday at 8 p.m. I had to call
at 7
to make sure that there was vacancy really to go into a room.
Which like the whole situation was that you were the phone person and the the support person, if there is one in the situation, is there for support, but also for an additional set of ears to help gather and filter the information, because a pregnant woman on the verge of popping, isn't always hearing and retaining everything in the way that it needs to, and sometimes the details are rather crucial. But all intents and purposes, we had a reservation for 8 p.m. On Tuesday night, and we needed to call an hour before just to make sure that they still had a room for us.
So having now been through this whole process, I do understand why we were delayed. But before we get there, let's just talk about dinner because that was a really yummy dinner.
It was good.
We went. I was told over the phone uh, to eat like a good solid meal before coming in.
From the actual people?
Yeah, they said before you arrive at 8. Make sure you've had yourself a good dinner.
Before being induced.
Right. So it's like a carbo load before, somebody runs a marathon or something.
Did they tell you why?
Yeah,
at that point?
you needed energy. You didn't want to go in on an empty stomach because there would be some theoretically there would be some waiting time.
Waiting time, and there'd also be drugs that you were going to be
They
given.
didn't really mention like eat food to absorb the drugs. It to me it was eat food so that you had residual energy ready for if you are in labor for a longer amount of time. Plus, you're not supposed to like eat during labor times for like various hospital reasons. So we went.
Get to that later.
Yeah, we went to Christina's. What did you say? Also not sponsored.
Also not sponsored. Not sponsored
But
this video.
We would really like that.
Love if they could sponsor these videos.
They won't see this.
They might. You never know.
So we
we're gonna plug some of those dishes.
We told my mom and dad because they're local, and they were gung ho, really excited to like have a last meal with us. If I ever learn how to insert a picture, maybe I'll put it here. But we had.
Or maybe we'll put it here.
We had our regular meal, which is always the same. Although now I want mom's meal because that was delicious too. And it was just a good time, and it was kind of a way to also take my mind off of like what was coming next.
I think most of the days and nights leading up to it, it's like we do with anything, and that's once again having a support person in the mix. I think is important because they ideally might know how to keep someone's mind clear, because adding stress, like it's a stressful time, there's a lot to worry about, and there's also not much you can do, so worrying doesn't help anything. Doesn't help you dilate any faster or anything like that. So best to keep calm, and let the baby and your body do the things that they naturally need to do. So let's go get distracted with some good food.
It's a good way to distract me is with good food. So
and I support it 100%.
So we couldn't have timed it better. We went for an early dinner, and then we were pretty much finished around 7 when I made the phone call.
Timed up very nicely.
Would have been great had
your project management skills were on point.
On point. Thank you. So we were told there wasn't a vacancy yet, and to give a call back in an hour, which would have been call at 8.
So I want to pause there.
Okay.
Because you had stepped out to make the phone call, right?
Yeah, because you had a dinner table.
So my question to you, I don't know, to the viewers, I don't know the answer to this. What were your initial thoughts when they gave you that news?
I was bummed, but I kind of knew it.
We had talked about the possibility of not going in
right on time.
We like to, because that's something we like to do, is go over scenario A, B, C, and additional if needed, right?
And like how we would react and respond, and that just comes from lots of experiences of
being let down.
I don't want to say that, but like
things not going as anticipated.
Yeah, things going a different way than what was planned, and then not getting upset or overreacting to it.
Some people thrive off going off script. Some people
like it less. So when she said there wasn't a room available, I still wasn't very clear as to like what that really meant. Now I know, like,
because once again we didn't have all the details. Like
they're not super forthcoming with details either,
and we know why.
So she said call back. So we said good night to my parents.
Sorry, just want to jump in. She asked you to call back in an hour, or she said she was
this very first time.
Okay.
She said to call back in an hour, which would be 8 o'clock. So we went home, which is also why Christina's was a good choice, because it's down the street from where we live right
Sort of on the way to the hospital, but
right.
also
Like we didn't have to go farther from the hospital to get to, but at least we could come home easily. So what? We came home and we put on
put on the
Community. We
put
put
on the
on
Office.
The Office. That's right, because season 6 Pam delivers, and I wanted to watch that. So we started season 6. That's a good timeline point. We started season 6 when we got home, and Pam doesn't deliver until like halfway through the season. So I know I've been following that too. Uh, Called back at 8,
And what they tell you?
and they said still no vacancy. And then it started that like confusing. We'll call you. We'll call you within 2 hours. So they called it. I called it 8, and then they'll call us back within 2 hours, meaning we were expecting a phone call by 10.
Okay, so here's where I'm gonna jump in and say that anytime someone says we'll call you, you should set a timer for when they should call you.
I mean, our eyes were on the clock that was on the wall.
But I mean, just if anyone told you they're gonna call you back, don't hold your breath. That's all I'm saying.
So, we'll make this part of the story,
and that's me included. I might not. I might say I'll call you back, but I might not call you back.
Me too, I guess. We played this phone tag back and forth of waiting for them to call, giving them the benefit of the doubt, and then calling either 30 minutes after the timeline or an hour, all the way until 2 a.m.
We were supposed to leave to head to the hospital at probably 7:15, 7:30 at the absolute latest.
To get there by 8, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And by 1 o'clock, 1:45 in the morning.
Like we were tired. We were hanging out on the couch.
Because let's go back. So yeah, there was a lot of back and forth calls, in which didn't they eventually stop saying we'll call you back, and they just said please.
No, they kept saying we'll call you as soon as we have a room. Like we were next in line, so to speak. So as soon as there's a room available, we'll call you. And then at maybe like 2.
But wait a minute, I feel like we're skipping, because sometime between 10 and midnight, I believe that we called, and didn't they give you the information that a room, which I wish they wouldn't have even given this information, that a room was there, but someone else jumped ahead?
Yeah, good memory. So like they had a room prepped and ready,
which we were told
apparently
that we were next in line.
But then a woman came in labor and had to have the room. Like I picture she was coming in an ambulance, or like, the Hollywood movie where it's like drive up
Hollywood style.
So we got bumped, and then I just super demoralized because I was just ready for it to happen. So the 2 a.m. call, I said, can we just come in the morning? Can we stop playing phone tag? We're exhausted.
Because I think one of the comments was, they said, you had asked, are we going to get in tonight?
Yeah, like, is it reasonable?
And they said, yeah, we want to get you in tonight, or something like that, they said.
So we learned once arriving to the hospital and talking to the many nurses that they had scheduled more than their regular amount of inductions as well. So on the very last phone call where I said, can we just please come in the morning? She kind of like, it sounded like she was looking at her list and said there are multiple women scheduled for 7 a.m., but that if we got there before that time, then I'm still ahead of them because we were scheduled for 8 o'clock the night before. Does that make sense? It
makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense that we would still need to beat them there in the morning, given that our time was
we
there
ended up
the night
not
before.
having to like actually beat them there, but I also assume that those women got pushed back as well. Like they were told to be ready at 7 a.m. and might not have come in until the nighttime. Do you need something? Like a cushion? So what ended up happening was we like shut down at 2, and then
thank goodness
was told. Also, I didn't want you driving. Like in the night across the county.
Yeah, at that point by 1, I had
You're
already been up
tired.
for 20
Why were you up so long?
because I worked on
Oh,
Tuesday.
sorry.
So I get up at 6 usually.
Sorry.
So if you're up at 6 and you go to bed at 2 the next morning, it's
Okay,
4 hours.
math.
Actually up for 20 hours. I was up for 20 hours. So yes,
That wouldn't have been
driving
safe.
driving on that level of sleep would not have been good, or less than that, pretty much. So.
Regardless of like whatever adrenaline might have kicked in to go. So I finally got a phone call.
Side note, the reason that we were only waiting for the call is because for the last 2 weeks, the car, which is a very big pro tip, the car had been ready to go, had all the bags in it, was
Oh
fully
yeah.
packed, fully stocked, with both of our bags, the baby
Suitcases.
bag, change of clothes,
Gatorade.
Gatorade, snacks. So all we needed to do was get the call, grab the keys, and get in the car.
And go.
So you could do that on minimal sleep. Getting there is difficult.
Yeah. um. Yeah.
So then we extended our. So we got the call right at like 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. So right at 6, just check the time. Right at 6, pretty much right at 6, she called. I thought it was an alarm that I hadn't had set.
Me too. I was like, "What is that? Turn that thing off."
So answered the phone, and we keep saying she. I don't remember if it was the same person or not, but
Was never given a name.
never. So they said, come in by 7:30. So we didn't have to beat anybody else there by 7. Um, so, it wasn't at 6. It was earlier than 6, like 5:30, 5:45 or so. But either way, I turned, thank you, I hung up, and then turned on many alarms to make sure that we kind of like backtrack. It takes
Oh,
20
you went back
minutes.
to sleep?
You went back to sleep.
I don't. I barely remember even the call. I thought that the call and there was like maybe 5 minutes of sleep,
Nope.
and then we were back up.
No, so I did some like backwards math of how long it might take to get to the hospital. Plus, now I wanted McDonald's breakfast because this is the morning time, and if you have to be up early driving, that's like the number one reward is a McDonald's breakfast.
Because you don't want to get there past 11 or past 10. Might not have breakfast.
Oh, I thought you meant like you don't want to show up to the hospital not fed because you might not be able to.
Well, yeah, that's true. But also, McDonald's breakfast
breakfast.
has a cutoff time.
So it's 9:30, by the way, the cutoff time.
Earlier and earlier every year.
So backwards math, I figured if we left the house by 6:45 at the latest, we'd still get to the hospital by 7:30. So I put on some alarms, and then we ended up officially getting up at 6:30. I got up earlier because I was like, I did go back to sleep, but then I also woke up, and I'm not doing this back and forth. So I got up and like putzed around the house, did a little more like last minute cleaning because I like coming home to the clean house.
Mm-hmm.
Fed the pets, and then that was another thing is all night long we were leaving my parents on the hook because our dog and like arranging getting the dog and bring him to my parents' house. So that was another like small point of frustration is I knew my dad was somewhat staying up to like be ready to come get the dog in the night. Also something I didn't want happening.
We had other options to like
We did,
neighbors had offered, but they don't know
It's
the
just not
whole
the
rundown. And the parents have been riding with us on this thing since the beginning, so
Right.
they really wanted to contribute.
So got you up. I don't remember if we showered or not, but rolled out. Got to McDonald's, got food, right, and then showed up to the hospital. You took away that I didn't think. I thought we'd go on the highway, but regardless, we got there on time. We got there ahead of time.
There's no McDonald's on the highway.
But there are on like the way to the highway entrance.
Mm.
And then you pulled up, dropped me and all of the luggage off on a bench, and then went to go park. And then the car sat there for the whole duration that where you parked.
Parking lot was very full.
Yeah.
Very full. I got like one of the last few spots left.
So we rolled in the front lobby. You say you're going in for an induction. The nurse at the front kind of already knows because you're walking in with a giant belly. And then they told us to go to the plant, to the elevator, to the third floor, and everything was like real hush hush and quiet. Like the whole hospital was still kind of asleep. Um, and then the intake nurses at the delivery unit were, they must have been at the end of their shift too.
I think so.
They were a little curt. They were a little like we were trying to crack jokes and like, hi, we're here, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
Um, so we filled out paperwork, we got wristbands and whatnot.
And so as we were filling it out, we had this running this running. There's always the running joke of make sure you mark your baby down so they don't
Oh,
switch the baby at the hospital.
so if you mentioned we had already packed all of our luggage, everything was living in the car for the last 2 weeks, and I kept saying, "Do you have the permanent marker?" Because the joke was I wanted the baby's foot to be like marked with an X or something, or like a G. Like that's our kid. Don't confuse him with somebody else. And then lo and behold,
Well, I always say that I was saying that we don't need it. There's not many blazing couples running around here that we've seen and all these things. So then as we're filling out our paperwork, immediately after us comes
the elevator opens, and it's us in reverse. It's a black woman and a Chinese man, or an Asian man who's not confirmed at the point. But it like I elbowed Phil like, see, I told you. And then we find out this is jumping ahead of time, but we find out that the wife elbowed her husband and was like, "See, I told you." So we were right to worry about these things.
We should have brought the marker. But it's okay because you don't need a marker because they use labels.
Yeah, it's really intense. They scan all the things. So the whole of Wednesday day wasn't super eventful because nothing really happened. I wasn't dilating quickly.
Well. Let's explain it. So we checked in at like 8:30 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Nice room.
No windows.
No windows though.
Which I thought all the induction rooms didn't have windows on purpose to like make you forget what time of day. But when we were
like the casino,
yeah, or the grocery stores. So when we were getting rolled much later to the secondary room, I spotted like other delivery rooms that had windows. I was like, hey, what gives?
Yeah,
like we should have we were delayed, and I wanted a window. But in hindsight, the window probably would have caused me a lot of
more anxiety
because I could have told what time of day more easily.
Yeah.
So we probably got settled by like 9. You were opening all cupboards and trying to like fit suitcases and
well, they give you a nice little the hospitals have a nice little video that gives people a tour of how the labor and delivery areas are. So
it's like a hotel
yeah, we got
room.
to see that it's a hotel room in that it has everything that you essentially need there. But yeah, it's like a hotel room if it were like a dorm and a glorified dorm room with technology
with medical equipment.
Yeah, with medical equipment.
So like the spotlights in the ceiling, or the Star Wars beep boop beep boop.
There were a lot of things that were like, oh, they must use this when the baby's done. They must use this for delivery. They must use this to keep track. They must this is.
We did poke around.
We poked around a lot to give us a little tour, but
we had a full bathroom, we had a shower. You took 2 showers.
Mm-hmm.
And that I thought was really comical is, like, we know I like things neat and clean, but come to find out, so do you. You just use me as the like catalyst of making it happen, because I was pretty much stuck on the bed with the IVs and everything hooked up, and you were like tucking everything away, including some of the medical equipment. Like, why is this out here? And you like put it into the wall. How the wall had that little like excerpt. You remember that cupboard on wheels? It's like people could trip over this. And then the nurse came in and she tripped over something, and you were like, "See."
Yeah, too much shit in there.
It wasn't like a small room at all. It was bigger than, maybe it was the size of like the bedroom here, but it was spacious enough to have lots of equipment, a couch for you, a bed, a medical bed for me, plus like a whole other half of the room that
Had
really
the
is dedicated for him once he
yeah,
arrives.
yeah.
I gotta shift. So the day kind of passed. We had TV.
You had
I
put
put
Grey's
on,
Anatomy on for most of the day.
and yeah, I hadn't gotten like sleepy yet.
So they had given you an oral uh, drug, I guess.
To help with the
To
dilating.
They explained that there were 3 routes we could take with dilation. There was the oral thing. Can't remember the names of anything. So I had to see. Then there was a topical gel that they could rub inside on your cervix or on your uterus or something. Cervix. And then the next item would be Pitocin, which, as we find out, is basically Oxycontin or Oxycontin, whichever one.
It's an IV
one
drip.
T, connected through the IV. But that was like the last one that they were gonna.
Resort.
That was the last resort. So, because we went in, because the week before you were dilated at about 1 centimeter,
or less.
And what we learned was that at 10 centimeters is when it's like go time. So
some of us knew that.
Some of us knew that. Like I said, the support person doesn't get all the information. But it's okay. So
I hadn't changed over the course of the whole week. I was still less than a centimeter. They kept saying like it's less than a finger. So you have to remember like a finger is approximately a centimeter, and that's how they're checking. And then
my stepdad's fingers, his are like 1.75.
Sorry, I just pictured Mr. V checking my cervix, and that wasn't very fun. The oral medication was like a tiny little powdery substance that I had to hold under my tongue for as long as possible before taking a drink of water. But we did go back to sleep just because we had only had a few hours in the night leading up. So you and I, we dimmed all the lights. You got your little couch rolled over and set up, and
I tried to do a little bit of work, a little mix of stuff here or there,
a little bit of laptop
but
work.
By like lunchtime, and then we had occasional people coming in, and you got like probably several, maybe 2 dilation checks to see how things are progressing, and they weren't really changing.
I had the original like intake check, and then they wanted to see if anything had changed just with the first dose of medication, because they had explained that sometimes you just need like one dose to let things kick in, and then it'll just flow naturally, and it didn't. So around lunchtime I had a second check where, were you saying like nothing happened at all? There's no change?
No real change. So by that point I knew that like I was sticking around because I was like, man, I don't want to miss anything. So once there was no change after several hours, I was like, let me go grab some lunch.
We're hungry.
Because the lunch orders that were provided, the food orders provided were only for mommy to eat. So
and
luckily
they told us that leading up. They said like pack food and you can go out at any time to go get food.
So I went across the street. There's a nice little shopping center
where I used to work. So that's a fun little
circling back. So I grabbed some sushi, California roll for you. Nothing raw or anything crazy. And I grabbed us some smoothies because I wanted nutrition to be kind of big, because at this point you could still have solid foods, right?
Until I had the epidural, I was allowed solids.
So came back. We had a nice lunch. Had the smoothie, and
then I think I napped more.
You napped. Yeah, there was not really much else going on.
I was told to like try and rest because you'll need it later.
You need the energy later. So
what did you do? Like every time I fell asleep, you went and took a walk?
I was like playing games on my phone, checking emails, messaging people.
You should have rested too.
So from the support person perspective, what I wanted to do that I should have done, which I will give advice to somebody anyone else about to go through this is to anyone who's interested, set up either just decide that you're going to post everything on Facebook or social media, or use like a messaging app and just give everyone the link to it so you can just send, or
Wolf?
woof, I don't know, something, because I didn't do that as I intended, and I ended up just sending out individual messages
Copy
to.
pasted.
Well, I kept the family group on WhatsApp. That was easy.
Yeah.
Your coworker, your old coworkers from work, set up a group for me.
I appreciate.
So
I felt a little left out realizing that I wasn't in that chat, but I appreciate not
yeah,
having.
what were we gonna do in these chats?
I like to be a part of stuff. I like to be included.
In hindsight, it would have been great for you to be in the chats later on, because when you were doped up, it would have been some good material.
No, I'm glad
So, parents, family were on one chat. The work friends, and then my friends were on a separate chat. So I tried to limit the updates to those that were either inquiring with me or
like
that need to know.
Reached out.
So, but yeah, you just kind of try to stay busy, and unfortunately, there's not much there is to do except just either be around and support or watch TV. So,
which also the TV had a speaker in the remote that was only on my bed. So if you wanted to listen to the TV, you had to be close to the remote.
Yeah. In hindsight, that makes sense, because you don't want TVs blasting when the labor delivery area where new babies might be, and people trying to get some rest and save their energy. So you don't want TV speakers just blaring. So I get it. But so once again, not conducive.
You took multiple walks. You left the hospital altogether for lunch and brought it back. You
just across the street. I didn't try not to go far.
I mean, it's still leaving the facilities,
right?
And then all the while, like, still not a lot of dilation. So what Dr. Lynn, she explained was, like, she outlined a whole schedule of the oral medication that we would have one. Was it every 4 hours or is it every 6 hours?
I think it was every 4.
Every 4. All the way up until 2 a.m. was her...
What's the plan?
Projected timeline. And by 2 a.m., if nothing was kicking off, then we'd level up to the next
Which
medication.
I think would have been the topical.
Okay, that makes sense. So, I mean, sure, yeah. We don't know.
No, I think it was. I think it was because... Yeah, I think it was going to be the topical.
So you and I kind of settled in to have a night. So we made the decision that you were going to go out and get dinner.
Because once again, so a lot of this revolved around Serena Williams. So she was playing in U.S. Open on Monday night,
which we entertained
ourselves
at
home.
With. Yeah,
it was awesome.
It was really good.
They had a nice ceremony for her because it could have been her last match ever.
Every time she had a match, they had a ceremony.
And she crushed it. So she was back on Wednesday.
Which is that night we were there.
She was supposed to play. She's supposed to hit the courts at 7 for her next round match against the number 2 seeded opponent. So ideally, she was probably going to lose that.
And that would have been a good entertaining way to pass the time.
Yeah.
So we had to decide that you needed to go. Excuse me. Before 7 to run the errand to get dinner, to bring it back in time to, like, have everything popping off.
Right. And at that point, had been in the hospital for about, 6 plus 4, about 10 hours. I was going a little stir crazy just because I knew that we were there to make this thing happen, and nothing was happening. But my other concern, my concern grew because this guy who came out at 10 pounds 2 ounces, prior to that, we didn't have the best reading on what size he was, so everyone kept referring to him as just being a big boy.
He's a big boy.
And whenever we'd ask how big, they said, "Oh, it's hard to tell, but we'll have to see." But he's big, and my concern grew because with her lack of dilation after 10 hours, and a big boy of unknown size,
It's not
it
a
being
good
our first
recipe.
baby, and with other friends that we've had that tried to do a vaginal birth and excuse me, take a
and,
burp, buddy.
and just
Um,
unsuccessful.
Unsuccessful for one reason or another. Um, I started to ponder because the doctors had come in and said, you know, if she's not dilating, maybe we'll talk. You know, we'll talk about other options.
And they only ever said other options,
But
unless I or you said the word
no,
C-section.
but I think that's the other option. But they try not to. They
Right,
try
right,
not to
right.
use because it's a
Scary.
significant surgery.
Yeah.
Um, However, if the baby's not going to fit out through the birth canal anyway, and the C-section is necessary, then my goal was to say, let's not waste time in you going through additional pain of trying to dilate and push
Mm-hmm.
for something that's not going to come out. So during the dinner walk, I made a few phone calls to some friends, some that were in the medical field, some that had recently gone through this, and
Got some
some of the
advice.
stories and advice were very similar to our situation, and the result of those were a successful C-section, and I had enough information that I needed to at least find the doctor and try to talk reasonably about this, but outside of the room because
Away from
I
you.
didn't want to cause any concern.
Right.
So on my way in from dinner, which is like 6 o'clock, probably 6:30, 6:45, I'm coming in. I find Dr. Lynn in passing. Um, I say, "Hey, Dr. Lynn, can we have a chat?" So we're chatting on the way back to the room, and I'm trying to grill her more about the size, and
And she wasn't my main OB. She was just in the practice where my OB was. So she's also slightly less familiar with my
less
case and so
familiar,
on.
but has
Still
they
knowledgeable,
have
but
yeah,
yeah.
they're a licensed doctor. They have
Right.
access to all the charts, all your history. So she continued the same story. But then as we turn the final corner, we see our original nurse Jen,
Jen. We like Jen.
who's like smacking up some scrubbing up or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, good, you're here. Room 5 water broke." And I was
That's
like,
me. Room 5.
and I look at Dr. Lynn, and I'm just like, "Oh, well." She's like, "Well, there you go. Now we're moving." So I kind of rushed back to the room, and
Gina was already in
our
there.
neighbor Gina was there.
So Gina lives right next door. Like I'm looking at the window at her house. And she is a new nurse, a new RN at Shady Grove.
She's been an RN for like 2 months at this point.
The summer.
Maybe 1 month ago.
So while you were getting dinner, I still had mobility enough to um, unhook. What happens? They changed the bands that monitor the baby from the corded kind to like
Wireless.
a wireless um, device. What else to call it? So the only thing I had to worry about was like getting in and out of bed comfortably. They had put the IV thing into my arm, but I wasn't hooked up to any IV drippings yet. So the only thing that would have kept me in bed in place was that original band monitor for the baby until they put a wireless kind on. So I was still able to get up and down off the bed to go to the bathroom. And that was really the last time I was able to get up to go to the bathroom. And it was, I guess, because I had had 2 doses of the oral medication to help dilate, I was starting to feel cramps. And I told you that before you left, was the only thing that really is going on is I'm now feeling like light cramps that are like a mild period cramp, maybe like a 3 on a scale of 10.
In hindsight, were those light contractions?
Yeah, I guess they were. Like that's so. Yeah, that's what we'll call them. Is light contractions. A period cramp is light contraction. So not we. I was going back and forth from the bathroom, um, doing all the regular things. Had to pee, had to poop, had to just. Sometimes it's just comfortable to sit on the toilet when you're not sure.
Did you have a feeling that soon you were going to be tethered, so this was your chance to move around?
No, no, but I also, like, separate from this whole situation, had other thoughts of like maybe I should stand up and like do some squats or stretch or like get on a yoga ball and bounce around. But I wasn't feeling any of that. I just wanted to lay and sleep. And so I did until this hour. So almost as soon as he left, I started feeling more cramps. I was like, "Oh geez, let me go sit on the toilet. Let me go poop this out, get comfortable." And every time I finished and started going back to the bed, I turned around and went back to the toilet. Just as like a point of comfort, really. And my mom, my birth story is my mom said she thought I was a poop. So like I totally understand now what maybe what she was thinking. Um, so I sat there on the toilet for a long time, and then I started peeing, and then I realized this is more pee than I regularly pee, and it
Which
just
is has to be a lot
it,
because you pee a lot.
yes I do. So it just kept coming, and then it was painfully coming, like the peeing was coming with a cramp, which is a contraction,
Mm-hmm.
and I did start to panic a little bit. I did wish you were there, of course, and I pulled
Help thing.
help thing right by the toilet that they have, and they have a little speaker there. Hello, how can we help you? And I said, I think my water broke, or I'm just really in a lot of pain. I'm in the bathroom. So Jen came into the room, and Michelle, shouldn't see me. And I said, I'm in the bathroom. She opened the door, and I said, I think my water broke. She goes, well, did your water break? And I said, yes. Like, she wanted me to maybe be assertive about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the hard thing was we had been coaching each other on like when your water breaks, remember coat, because that was what they
One
told.
of our classes, COAT, stands for color, odor, activity, and color of the water,
Color of the water.
odor of the
Yeah.
water, activity of
Of
the
him
baby,
and the time that it happened.
and the time.
So it around 6:30 it happened, give or take. But I couldn't quite check the color or odor because everything was just like there together in the toilet. So slightly pinkish, slightly yellow. There was poop there too, so you never know. But it was a lot. It was a lot of liquid, and what they don't really tell you is you just keep your water just keeps coming after it's broken. So I spent the next however long labor was.
Especially if you, and what I also think they said was that your water break is going to be a lot because you have a lot of fluid in there.
I was at
Some
the number
people don't have
25.
some people don't have as much of as high of a fluid
Yeah.
count, and their water break would be a little bit different. So
Like
just
a
to keep
cup
in mind,
versus a pitcher.
not that it's not that it's never going to be more than just normal pee, but some people might not have as much water breaking as you.
Right. So I was just soggy for the rest of this experience, which is such an uncomfortable feeling. So waddled my way back to the bed and was in a lot of pain. Um, Pain enough that Jen asked, "Do you want some immediate relief, like a pain medication?" And I said yes. So that's when I thought she hooked my whatever this is called in your to the IV. I thought she hooked me up to a cord to one of those bags that hangs off the. But really, what happened was she just shot the pain medication
Somebody
in.
gave me morphine. No, maybe
Well,
not with the baby.
we should just look at the notes. It probably is in the discharge notes.
I'm not gonna know what I'm looking at if I look at it, but we can try.
You
Yes.
read it at his appointment and verified some things.
You're right.
So, I started tripping balls. Like that's just the easiest way to put it. I didn't know who was in the room. At one point, I thought Jen was in the room, but she had to step out, and I was calling for Jen, and like no answer. And then I thought you were in the room, and I was calling for you, and there's no answer. And that maybe that's what brought Gina in because I do remember looking at the door and seeing a head pop in, but then the door closed again. And then I like moaned. I was letting out a lot of like uncomfortable feeling pain. And then Gina came in And so I said, Phil's gone to get dinner, and he'll I don't know where he is, but he'll be back, I guess. And
The one time I leave
I
for the
know,
second time I leave for an extended time,
I felt so bad
trying to rush back.
trying to hold it in for you.
It's
Um,
okay.
but so this trip, it was a real trip. I narrated a little bit, right? So once I got back in the bed, my eyes were closed for like the next 24 hours, basically. And anytime it was painful, I just closed my eyes. It's just easier for me. Um,
It's a safe space,
yeah,
right?
it's like it's the
For
last
you.
safe private space that you have is just closing your eyes. Like even if like a doctor is checking your breath or putting a thermometer in your mouth, like just think about it. You normally close your eyes because otherwise you're like looking at just kind of dead staring at them, right? That's weird too. So I said I could see Legos. Um, that like there was a desert kind of palm tree scene. Everything was literally rolling towards me like on a conveyor
Yeah,
belt.
so people usually say that if they're like high, they say that they're like rolling
I'm
or something like that.
rolling,
But
but the scenery was
you
actually
kept saying that and you were
rolling.
like, it's rolling. And I was like, you're rolling. You're like, no, it's
It's roll.
rolling. I was
I
like,
mean, like the
so
landscape was rolling towards and past me.
now as a support person, remember I just said I went from phone calls to talking to Dr. Lynn to now rushing into the room to provide support. And all I knew is that the water broke. So I get in here and I'm holding Michelle's hand, thanking Gina so much.
Gina was
And
on the
I'm
other
like,
side.
Michelle, are you okay? And then the first thing I hear is, yeah, there's Legos and palm tree
Oh
and
my god.
alligator under the bed.
Well, really, it was Gina was the alligator.
Gina was okay. So in hindsight, Gina was the
I didn't want to.
alligator.
I had enough. I had enough in me to not call her an alligator in the room at the time, but Gina was a Lego alligator, like the human Lego form with the alligator head.
So once at first I was trying to ration that. Okay, you need something, and then when you said palm trees, I was like,
She's
okay,
fine.
okay, this is. I said okay, and then someone said, yeah, I think they gave her some pain relief. I said,
That had
okay,
to been Gina.
okay, so that's when I knew we
We
could
were
ease
all
up a
right.
little
We
bit.
were okay.
But the exciting part is that we were. This is a huge next step.
And
We were moving.
it was 8 hours in advance of what the schedule would have been. So 6:30, my water broke instead of around what they projected to be 2 a.m., which is good. Yay. Um.
I want to take a break.
Okay, good. Me too. I'm gonna hit pause.
Yeah.
The stop. Okay, so I was tripping balls.
Tripping balls.
um, that that time was 2 hours long. I gotta adjust. 2 hours long. Would you say?
Of you tripping?
Maybe not of the whole like trip, but of that uncomfortable, eyes closed, breathing through some of the earlier contractions. How long did Serena play for? How long was her game, her match?
She might have won in 2 sets.
We'll have to look up the stats to be sure.
Yeah.
But
she played at 7.
Mm-hmm.
She was done by, let's say, 8 o'clock.
So an hour.
Maybe a little bit longer.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
The most that I really remember, besides like being on a drug trip, was you trying to distract me with her game, with like parts of her match and so on.
Which it was very exciting. So
I'm sure it was.
she did most of the work. I was just narrating.
So I didn't watch any of it. Plus I didn't have my glasses on, so even if my eyes were open, it would have just been a blur on the screen far away. But I appreciate the attempt trying to take my mind off of things.
So this also coincided with the shift change around 7 o'clock.
Went from Jen to Sarah.
Right.
Yeah.
Who you were not a fan of.
Not originally.
Initially.
Yeah.
You were like, I want Jen back.
I said, I miss Jen.
Jen had some good initial bedside manner,
Too fun, cracking
and
jokes
she
and
was
things.
our first nurse from the beginning, right?
Right.
So it makes sense.
Well, there was Kelly, the intake nurse, who like covered for Jen, helping get things set up and so on. But yeah, it was Jen for the whole duration of Wednesday,
Yeah.
until the night. So Sarah came in, and Jen was very very tall, and Sarah was quite short. Like that even was a funny contrast. Yeah.
Do you want to? Okay, so I guess my question to you is, would you like me to lead the remainder since I was more coherent? Because this
I think you're
also
gonna need to fill in all of the like realistic plot
what was
points, and
actually going on.
right, but I can tell you what was
Okay,
going on in my
so
head.
so after the Serena match,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah had come in. Um, she was being, she's being very positive. Um, she was quick though. She's quick and positive. Um, the nursing staffing situation wasn't bad. But she did have, I think, one or two other people
They
to
were
check in
busy.
on.
Yeah.
Apparently, at the time, the reason we were delayed is because there was an enormous amount of an inordinate,
Enormous.
a large, a many amount of babies being born at the hospital at this time, and they were just busy. So I think some of what we experienced from nurse behavior was they're really trying to bounce around between their patients. Not that they were too overbooked, but
Every nurse had two to
every
three
nurse
women.
had at least two, probably more. So Sarah would come in and check on us when she could. However, we got switched over to Doctor Footer at that time.
Footer. Yeah, Footer.
At that time,
So Dr. Lynn went home
Lynn had to go home. Or no, Lynn. No, I'm sorry. This is still Wednesday. Lynn was still there.
through the night.
Lynn was still there through the night. Sorry. So,
Dr.
but she
Footer.
after the water broke, she had come in and done another assessment, and turned out that her Michelle had dilated to about three, maybe 3.8 or something like that. So the either the oral drug plus the water breaking
Plus
things
the
plus
contractions.
the contractions, things are opening up so that we were hitting a great pace. So then for us mentally, I think we felt that we were advancing further along and that this was going to be sooner than we, thought.
Thought.
Um
It's still the 30th. We're still in August 30th.
this was Wednesday. No,
Sorry, this
this
is
was the Wednesday, August 31st.
that's right, because we would have gone in Tuesday the
We're supposed to go
30th,
in on Tuesday the 30th.
and we're still in Wednesday the 31st.
31st. It's 31st, maybe like
Yeah.
8 o'clock at night at this point.
So
So
if he was going to be born in August, he had 4 more hours to
yeah,
get it
we
in.
were hoping so. However, the pain was picking up. Right, you were at 3, going on 4 centimeters dilated. We knew we were trying to get to 10. Um, Dr. Lynn had shared that once you get to 4, things start rolling, and we were almost at 4. So we were like, okay, once again, we're getting excited. However, there wasn't much change happening.
Is
But
this? Sorry, go ahead.
um, and she kept trying to say we have to wait it out, and then Michelle was expressing that she was, that the pain was tough. And one of the things that Dr. Lynn had asked us earlier is if we were interested in an epidural. And much of the advice we had gotten from other friends was that if you're going to do epidural, don't be a hero, just get it. Don't try to wait until later to get it. Just get it. Um, and then you can choose what to do with it. Go ahead.
So, yes, I've gotten that advice. And to make things confusing, I've also been given the advice of don't get it too early because then you'll become too comfortable and used to it that by the time you truly need it, it won't be as effective. And don't get it too early because you also want to know. what the pain, the contractions really do feel like, so that when it comes time to pushing, you can recognize that, so like that rolling sensation
You want to get the relief.
afterwards. Right, because if you have the epidural, you'll be kind of, not kind of, you'll
Numb
be
to it.
numb to it, but your body still needs to recognize when the contraction's happening to push. In hindsight, it was very easy to recognize towards the end when I was contracting, but I didn't want to get it too soon. But there's also that window of time where you can't get it after a certain phase because your body's moving too much. There's
Right.
a lot of like hold still moments. So continue, please.
So I, since Michelle was kind of already rolling a little bit, Dr. Lynn was in, Sarah was with us. As the voice of sobriety, I wanted to say, Michelle, I reminded you that, hey, you're interested in epidural, you need some relief. The epidural can provide relief. Would you like it now? And Dr. Lynn had always said, if you want the epidural, we can do the epidural. Like, no problem. You can get it now. So you asked that one more time to her to clarify. She said, yeah, we can put the order in. So that's what happened. Um,
Well, at first it was Sarah who, only Sarah was in the room.
no, 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 no,
No,
no, no, no.
because I remember asking for Dr.
Dr.
Lynn.
Lynn came in to check your. Dr. Lynn is when he checked your cervix
Right.
and your dilation, and at that point, you had kept saying this hurts, this really hurts, and she was like, we can do something for the pain. I said, what about the epidural? And she was like, yeah, you want to do the epidural now? And you were like, can I? And she was like, yeah, of course you can. She was like, you don't need to be a hero. Like, there's like you're in labor, girl.
I feel like I remember somebody saying, let's do the epidural, and I asked
There,
for Dr. Lynn to get the doctor's opinion. Is that when she came in
she
to
was
say so?
all this was
Leading up to
all
that.
this was happening at the same time.
Okay.
So, because there was also more time after we put the order in to when we got the epidural. So there was still like another 30 to 45 minutes after that until the epidural actually happened.
Is this also when I kept asking, is this labor?
That's when you started talking about it. That's when you started asking the questions because you were unsure what was going on. But once your water breaks, you are essentially in active labor, right? Like labor is happening.
I kept repeatedly asking Phil, is this labor? And you had to like, yes, this is.
And then once again, you didn't, as a good person trying to do their research, vet the answers, you didn't really fully believe me. So we had to ask Nurse Sarah, we had to ask Dr. Lynn, we had to ask other people that were coming in, the other shift nurses that were helping out, and all of them also confirmed that yes, labor. you were in labor. Mm-hmm. Which I think for you was the next realization point that this was really happening and about to go down. Because
like,
I think
the water breaking was a confusing, not sure if it was breaking moment. The entering active labor was a unsure.
But I also think that without going into too much of the prior details, that through all of our past experiences of trying to know what your body is doing, what's happening with your body, you didn't want to put too much stock into it if you weren't sure.
Right.
I think that was a defensive measure for yourself. And
like one last safe hold.
Mm-hmm. So then we got to meet the mad scientists.
Oh, the foreign doctor?
Yeah.
He had a good voice.
Yeah.
He had like a.
So what do you remember? How do you remember the epidural story happening? After asking for the epidural.
I do remember that it didn't come immediately, and so that long wait, I'd forgotten that we were getting the epidural. So I was asking, like, are we getting the epidural?
I was holding your hand for most of this part, just while you were laying down working on the contractions.
Did I have the peanut ball yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So it was just a lot of like curled over on myself, uncomfortableness.
Mm-hmm.
The epidural doctor. I feel like that was all his job was to come in and do epidurals,
mm-hmm.
which is probably why he was maybe doing somebody's epidural, and we were
I think
like,
probably epidurals and maybe spinal taps for people that are doing C sections. Like he's
uh,
probably the drugs in
the
the back
guy,
guy.
um, he had a deep European accent. That's why we called him the mad
He could
scientist.
have easily been,
Like,
he could have been a Bond
yeah,
villain.
yeah.
He could have been.
Which, like, for
If
his,
anyone has had a Sony PlayStation and played Crash Bandicoot, the evil doctor in that, it sort of along his voice too,
this is a
but
deep cut that I
it's
don't
a
know
deep
about.
cut, but somebody will get it.
The, his job matched his voice, and vice versa. Um, I do remember thinking that, and again, like I didn't call Gina an alligator. I didn't say it out loud while he was in the room. I waited till he left to say he had a good voice.
And for me, I had in my passings, I had seen him earlier in the day or
Did you
night or
hear him?
something. No, I didn't hear him. I saw him in passing, kind of coming out of another room. So then when he popped in, and all we hear is, "Do you need an epidural?"
Mm-hmm.
That's a bad
It
impersonation,
was
but he was that's we saw
like
the
thick.
lights were already dimmed, and the door cracks open, and we just hear this
Real
deep
deep.
deep European. I'm here for the epidural.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Um,
not quite Russian, but
yeah,
in that zone.
yeah,
So here's what I remember of the epidural is I had to sit up, put my feet flat on a chair. The plastic chair felt very wobbly. And I also had a hard time flattening out my feet. Like it hurt to make that motion. And all through pregnancy, my legs have just gotten like wider and wider to compensate my belly. So like closing them in and flattening my feet was really challenging and painful. And then I had to lean forward, but then like straighten my back.
yeah. You have to sit up straight
Sit up straight but lean forward.
because I think the issue is there that they need to get in
Count.
between
Right.
one of in between your discs.
We could have done so much more research, but it it it's just a little easier to trust the professionals and know that they know what they're doing, and that we
Just a tad easier.
just do what we're told at this point. So I do remember you were trying to come like to this shoulder, and
Sarah and I were in front of you,
and they told you to specifically
holding
stand in
you,
front of me.
keeping you straight and steady. I was trying to get you to just focus on me.
Mm-hmm. You're doing a very good job of that.
Because it did take several minutes.
They like wipe me down,
Clean you,
prep the area.
I think you got a couple prelim shots, like to reduce the pain.
Those hurt.
Excuse me.
I don't remember being asked like, do you like? They weren't like flicking and like, do you feel this? They just must have assumed this amount of time lapsed.
You had already committed to the epidural, so that was done. All they did was basically say you're going to feel a prick or a flick or a this or that.
Pinch.
You're gonna feel pressure. You're gonna feel this, and those things all happened because you confirmed it.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't say that I seek out the feeling of needles in my skin, but it is tolerable. It's okay.
Yeah.
And the insertion of the epidural wasn't anything. What I worried about was in the same way that they put the little IV thing in your, and then you can like feel that bit of plastic in there. That's what I was worried about in my back, is that all throughout having the epidural, I would feel it. But that's silly in hindsight because the whole point of the epidural is you're not supposed to feel anything. So once it was in, like that was another question of like, did I get the epidural? Is it there? And you kept having to say like, you have the epidural, it's there, it's on your back.
Yeah.
The only way I could tell is that big like sticker that kept getting caught on things.
So with the epidural, you also were not able to get up anymore.
So like, let's say from 9:00 at night, I was bedridden for the rest of the time.
Yep, that's when you went on lockdown. And Sarah
I
came
didn't.
in.
I didn't leave the room at all,
You did not?
but I also locked down on the bed.
On the bed,
They
right.
put a catheter in, which was great because every once in a while I'm like, I think I'm peeing. I don't know, but I must have been.
So
Catheter.
yeah, so Sarah came in and put the catheter.
Catheter.
I was going to say D catheter, but that's a decanter, which
It's for alcohol.
is for alcohol.
It's not the same thing.
Not the same thing. Sometimes it looks the same color, but so you were feeling good, and so we learned that you can get two hits every 10 minutes, I believe.
I thought it was every like 30 or an hour. It wasn't as quick as 10 minutes.
It already has a natural drip, but you can press for more.
Yeah.
But your press for more only happens, it gets locked out.
Yeah.
And the lock works. Maybe if you talk to some people, you might be able to get an additional, but I'm not sure. But
there's a reason they don't want you to overflow.
Right.
On pain meds.
But also that passes through to the little guy, so they're trying to make sure that not too much passes through to him that doesn't need to.
So that's when I had the peanut ball.
Yeah, Gina. One of Gina's big things that she wanted to do on the end, she said, because she was trying to help reduce the pain, and you were having more pain in your seats, which you kept saying, which everyone kept saying is good, because that meant that pain in your seat means that your birth canal and your vagina and everything is shifting.
Her perineal
area is shifting, which makes sense because it's opening up so that the baby can come through.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that in a short amount of time is like, that's why I think everyone was hopeful that you would dilate over the course of that last week, as opposed to
and I knew that's why, like we said, we went on a date on Saturday. I knew I wasn't anything because you weren't feeling. It was just mild discomfort pain.
Right.
It wasn't anything beyond that.
And nothing different from what you had felt earlier in the week.
People had asked, like, do you feel his head like banging on the bottom of your vagina? And like, yes, but not really, no. Like,
right.
So
you feel like you feel it because there's more pain, but no.
Correct.
So you got the peanut ball, which is like a giant peanut that you put in between your legs.
A yoga ball, but is in a peanut shaped
form.
Yeah. So
to help your legs stay separate while you lay, because with the epidural you have to lay on your side, I believe, right? Did you have to or no?
I don't think I had to.
I don't think you had to either. Better. But yeah. Also, I wouldn't feel comfortable laying on the needle on your back.
Maybe they worried that like it would compress the drip part and not like make it in.
Either way, you rolled around, got that thing tangled. It didn't really matter. Once they get the epidural in, you're coasting to a degree.
Like, yeah, I kind of settled in for the night. First of all, I wasn't moving from the bed, and second, I couldn't move my bottom half without at least another person helping me. Like, I literally couldn't lift up a leg.
Right. So I was there to help with that. But the downside to all this, circling back, is that I came back from Wingstop with 10 wings for me and a chicken sandwich and fries for her.
Before my water broke.
Prior to my knowledge of the water breaking.
Mm.
So once we got back, we paused to make sure Michelle was taken care of, managed the pain, got the epidural installed. However, once the epidural is installed, you can no longer have any more solid foods. Mm-hmm. So we had to put her Wingstop on hold until the baby was born. Sandwich and fries. So you
ate?
You became bedridden. I ate the wings kind of, I think, after people cleared out and after we got settled. Yeah, I ate the wings. Okay. I also once you were kind of feeling better, but like just talking. You were trying to talk to me because you felt you were groggy, and there was really nothing going on, nowhere I could go.
No real good TV on.
I also happened to, when going to Wingstop, I picked up a little thing of liquor because I was like, if I'm going to be sitting around here, I need something to pass the time and release some anxiety and chill out a little bit. So picked up a little Crown. Luckily you're in the hospital. There's tons of juices. We were right across the hall from the visitor kitchen, family kitchen area. So ice, cranberry juice, apple juice,
Orange juice.
orange juice was there.
Three
We
colors.
also we also brought some Gatorades, so
Mm-hmm.
made several different cocktails that night, and then
You had
yeah,
yourself a little party.
yeah, we had a water break party. Um, you watched some TV into the night, but then by like 2 o'clock, um,
We tried to sleep.
you were pretty much done. There was nothing else going on. I had watched the end of Justice League, or no, the end of Batman vs Superman on TNT, and then I was getting tired. Because I wanted to wait till that 2 o'clock mark, like people were saying, but the additional checks, there wasn't much difference on the dilation, so I kind of had the feeling that we were kind of waiting again.
Yeah.
So,
And then we also passed into September
mm-hmm,
in the night. So our dreams of August were gone.
yeah.
Um,
So now we're on September 1st, um, and I would say we probably both of us slept pretty well, even though you were turned over about every hour or so by
yeah.
Sarah.
Nurses would
Um,
come in and help me.
Turn
Maybe so
over
it
so that
wouldn't get.
like one leg wouldn't get dead or
Yeah.
blood flow.
Yeah. So
But
there were some times where like we were both up, but I couldn't see you because I was physically turned away from you.
mm-hmm,
And we tried to talk and have conversation, but it was just easier to sleep.
yeah, I had taken one late night stroll throughout the hospital on the through the same wing that we went in, the main entrance. Actually saw the guy, one of the staff, cleaning buffering the floors, buffing the floors, not buffering the floors. Um, yeah, and that's when I was like, there's nothing else for me to do. There's nowhere else to go. I just gotta go to bed.
Did you see Lanny at this time? No,
No,
not yet.
no.
Uh,
Um, so then we get to the morning, and
well, I want to add this.
Okay.
So, in the night when we were both up at the same time, we did start talking about names.
That's true because we
Because
were gonna probably name him August if he was born in
probably,
August.
yeah, very
Then
much likely.
once we crossed that threshold, we knew that okay, we need to go back to the drawing board.
Which is why, like, so when we first found out we were pregnant, we announced it right away. When we found out he was a boy, we announced it right away. Like every step of the way, everyone who wanted to be involved knew the details. The only detail that we really kept to ourselves was his name, because one, we weren't really sure about his name. If he wasn't born in August, I didn't want to name him August because I didn't want him to have to answer that question all the time. Like, oh, you born in August? And he has to answer like, no, September 1st, and then get some crack joke that he'll have heard for his whole life. Like, I don't want that for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, even if we had settled on a name, I would have liked that to be ours until he came out. So lots of loving pressure from especially grandparents, but the name is what we, even when we arrived to the hospital to check in with the ladies on the third floor, they said, and the name of the baby, and we said we're not sure yet. So they called him Baby Green or Boy Michelle on all the forums. Those were the
right. Like here's a great reason why. So one of our reasons was we would like to see him and meet him and see what he looks like,
yeah,
right?
just get a feel.
So what if we somehow were like we are dead set on Demarius or Jamarcus or something Gerald something I don't know something real in a certain direction, and he comes out looking like he does all beautiful, and we're like it doesn't really look like a Gerald or an Earl.
We could
These are things you can't do. You have until 12 months I think to change their name.
Oh, that long.
I saw that on the paperwork afterwards, but we had the right idea. Wait till we see the guy.
In between like epidural sleeping, which is kind of what I call it, and we were both awake, we would just trade names back and forth. I kept a Word document on my phone because I like being able to read it, see it on paper, and I knew I wasn't going to remember all the names that we were sharing because I wasn't remembering things clearly.
You were remembering Legos and palm trees and alligators.
for a time, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we workshopped a lot of names in the night, and then towards the early hours of the morning had various names and started playing with the order of the names and which names sound well together versus like you don't want like a weird rhyming scheme with the names and so on,
Right.
and like why certain names are important and so on. So that is what I remember to be of the night. It was like a slow going night, but that was the important part.
That was kind of the last thing we did early in the early morning hours, like 1 to 3 a.m.
And
But
we
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 were,
settled on a whole list of
yeah, we settled
possibilities.
on like a final like 5 to 10.
And then even then we're like I nixed one of mine and you nixed one of yours.
Mm-hmm.
So we had several options. Yeah. Until we saw him and knew.
Mm-hmm.
So then
So
morning came.
morning came and we met Dr. Footer. And so Dr. Lynn, rightfully so. I wouldn't want Dr. Lynn to deliver the baby and she'd been there for 30 something plus hours. Um, doctors gotta get sleep too.
Mm-hmm.
So we met Dr. Footer
And a nurse change again.
and another nurse. Do we have that nurse change? No, Sarah. Sarah was on for a little bit longer, I think.
It happened like nighttime versus daytime.
Yeah, it's true. So we lost Sarah, and then we got Elsa. Elsa.
And her like identical evil twin, Chris or Christine.
Christine. Yeah.
Which I just called Chris.
Mm-hmm.
They looked very much alike, but Elsa was the kinder, sweeter of the two, and Christine was like a battle axe. So you never knew what you were gonna get when they walked in the door, and I didn't have my glasses on, so I really didn't know who I was talking to.
And you were on drugs.
Yeah, and I was on drugs. So good times.
But Dr. Footer, really, first time I'm meeting any of these people from any of these doctors from Capital Women's Care.
And I had met him prior.
But I really liked the way he thoughtfully explained things. Once again, talked us through the size, the dilation process, what the next drug rounds might be. But the big thing that was happening was that since we had gone from water breaking at 6 p.m.,
Mm-hmm.
and we were at about 3.8 or so,
Mm-hmm.
and
Dilation.
by the dilation, and by the time we got to the morning, there was not much difference at all.
I thought I got into like a 7.
No, not much difference. A little bit. You maybe got to 4 or 5.
Really?
Yeah. So then they were like talking about what's the next thing that we can do. The next thing was the Pitocin.
So we skipped the topical cream altogether.
Skip the topical cream.
If that were the next thing.
I think the topical cream was to help get the water to break. But
see.
They really wanted you to take those drugs, even though they say water to break naturally. I mean, all the drugs were helping to induce. So your water had broken. Now we needed the birth canal to open up more. We needed him to come down more. But with the Pitocin, and this was the concern from other people, is that sometimes the baby doesn't react well to the Pitocin doses.
So heart rate.
That's where the monitors come into play. And a great tip, and this tip is ultimately what I think saved us from an anxiety perspective later on throughout the day, is that one of my good friends, shout out to Bobby, had said, whatever you do, keep that monitor in your eyesight. And the monitor he's referring to is the monitor that has Michelle's heart rate on there, the baby's heart rate, and reads the contractions, which I didn't really know how to read. But I had walked by these monitors, and all my times in and out or going stir crazy, I had walked by these monitors enough that I was starting to understand how they work. Plus, I would also ask each nurse to help me make sure that I'm reading this correctly.
It's good to ask questions.
So probably by the afternoon, I kind of figured it out. But also, what helped me figure it out was that you were being more responsive adversely to the pain, and I could see the correlation between how you were feeling and spikes on the monitor.
This is even in the morning time?
This is throughout the day. As the day is going on, I'm starting to see little
Blips.
specks happening.
And I'm saying ouch every once in a while.
Yeah, you're going, hurts.
Like we would be in a conversation and I would just have to pause and kind of bear down.
Mm-hmm.
Not actually bear down, but
Mm-mm.
like
Bear down comes later.
just go through it.
Right. So, um, the Dr. Footer explains how the Pitocin levels they'll increase it as long as the baby's responding fine, which he did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
His heart rate never really dropped at all. And as I started to learn more about what was going on, it made sense because the Pitocin supposed to help Michelle dilate or help the mom dilate. Um, Dilation allows the baby to drop further down into the birth canal so that once he's at the door, the big push can happen. And if he's not responding well to the Pitocin, that means his heart rate is dropping and he's not actively moving through and causing complications. But what happened to us was the complete opposite. He was, as the contractions would pick up, his heart rate would pick up, which in my mind, I equated to, well, that means that as it's opening, he's like working his way through, you know, and getting closer, which all made sense because as this happened, the contractions started to increase in strength,
and shortness of time between.
Shortness of time, right?
But again, this is throughout the whole of.
This Thursday. Is from like 8 o'clock
in the morning
until like 4 o'clock. So
in the afternoon.
Until the afternoon. So when back to your question about are you in labor? You were in labor from when your water broke until all through, which was 6 o'clock hour on Wednesday, until he came out on Thursday night. So Dr. Footer kept coming in, and he was in there in the morning on Thursday, September 1st. Kept checking every couple hours, and you were increasing. You had gone to 6 centimeters.
7 was a
You had gotten to 7, and then you had gotten to 8. Around like 4 o'clock, you had gotten to about 8.
Yeah. We were taking bets, taking guesses on like what's it gonna be, and I said 8, and I think in reality it wasn't quite 8. It was because they also said like you're at a 7.8 or you're at a 7 minus 1
because they don't want to put you in more pain because going in to see how much you're dilated is an invasive thing,
right? And it does it's not comfortable.
They're trying to be cognizant of that.
But it was close enough to 8 that they called it 8.
But so throughout that time, you not only you had known you were in labor, but you didn't. I think that you were still trying to figure out how do you manage this. So, but in the 3 o'clock hour check, when Footer had come in, and Christine was in there, they had done the final check and said, okay, we're gonna come back in about an hour or so, or that might have been Dr. Band at that point. That came in at 4 when they might have made that switch.
I really don't remember when.
But whichever doctor had left, and it was just Christine, and you had asked a really, really good question. You were like, because they kept saying it should feel like you have to poop, and like it should feel like you really need to bear down. And you were like, I feel the pain, but I feel like I need to hold it together. And that's when she said, no, you don't hold.
You need to work on relaxing.
Just relax and release.
Which is a harder thing to do actually than to like bear down.
Why so? Why is that? Try to explain the why you felt the need to hold and the difference in once she said that, what does that mean for how you change your muscles?
The contraction makes my body like clench up, which is very similar to like if you're really working out a hard poop, that you like clench and push to try and find some relief. So to say
clench your like your anus, right?
Yeah.
Clenching your anus, which is focusing pressure down there,
right?
And clenching your abs too, so you're kind of condensing everything.
But then to try and get relief is also pushing it downwards, like pushing it out.
Pushing it out would give you relief.
So to say you should work on relaxing when your body is doing this and you have to work on relaxing means you have to try and make your body do that, and it it was a mind fuck to try and go the opposite way of what my body was wanting to do. He's fine.
Yeah.
We are getting ahead of ourselves, though. We're skipping a large portion of the afternoon that I don't want to forget about.
Okay, let's go back to that.
Whether it was with Dr. Footer or Dr. Band, you were freaking out.
I was freaking the fuck out.
You not only were having a hard time trying to articulate we should have a C-section, which is I think what you really wanted to just say. Stop all of this. Let's just say we want a C-section, but you wanted me to be able to make that decision. You were not going to say give her a C-section.
I don't think they would listen to me.
No, but I also did not want a C-section. I wanted as much as possible to deliver this baby vaginally.
Why?
I wanted to see the whole process through. I wanted my body to do it. You were having a really hard time just being in the room. You were at one point like manic cleaning is the best way to describe it. How when I get angry and I manic clean around the house, I recognized exactly what was going on. At one point I woke up and you were doing push-ups. You were tweaking. You were like hard. You called the place a medical prison and then started cracking more jokes about it. And it didn't bother me that I was stuck on the bed because I had enough going on that like to me it really didn't feel like I could go anywhere anyways. But I get for you that there's nothing you can do for me physically beyond like calming voice or hold my hand when needed or go get me something like juice, right?
Yeah, all I could get you is juice at this point.
Yeah, so that was another thing.
And they kept bringing in the food orders that you had ordered.
They should like put a little asterisk next to the patient who is on an epidural to stop bringing food. But it worked out because then you got some lunches built into the game that I kept sneaking bites of because I was hungry and I really did want something other than like sugary juice. You know when you just drink too much sugary juicy popsicles and things, like the back of your throat gets like that weird, right? So the mashed potatoes and the meat like that really hit home.
Not advised. I said that every time. I said I'm gonna give you this bite, but it's not advisable.
You also went to the bathroom and I snuck like 5 more bites. So I know I'm fine. We're all here. But I recognized that you were in such a hard space and I couldn't do anything for you. So I started texting Dad and saying, "Hey, I asked, can he bring more pillows? Because it was uncomfortable. Like the pillows they had are uncomfortable. We should have brought our own, but this worked out. And then can you also bring toothpaste or something beyond pillows? And then can you bring something to calm Phil down? But mainly it was, can you just come and talk with Phil and give him some support, because I couldn't think of anything else to say beyond like, here we are. And I'd already, we'd already said all the things. He's gonna need feeding soon. I can feel it. So that worked out around 2 p.m.
Right.
And it was also talked about beforehand, like you were feeling such stir crazy confinement that you had texted Ron and Ferris about batting cages. And in my head, I thought, no, don't do that because you'll miss something else. Like the water broke when you weren't there.
My other mindset was maybe me being here, even though I'm your support person, is somehow like mental blocking, preventing the other things from happening. Mm-hmm. So since when I left the last time, or the time before I got lunch on Thursday. When I got dinner on Wednesday,
Mm-hmm. The water
whatever
broke
happened, the water broke, right? So maybe me going somewhere relatively close would help get,
further along.
because we still needed a lot more dilation to
Mm-hmm.
happen, right? So at that point, so I was toying with those ideas.
I don't think
I knew it wasn't the best, and I wasn't fully into it, but
it was an option.
I really wanted to consider all options.
You really wanted to hit something. You wanted a punching bag. You
I had
wanted
asked, I had walked
a
around
gym.
enough, and I had asked the
You wanted to exert energy.
I had asked if there was a gym that was accessible. There was a punching bag.
We told them they should set up a support, a daddy station for that.
Support person, because it might not always
Right,
be daddy.
right.
You know?
A support person room, much like an anger room, that you could
Yeah.
just like relieve energy, not in front of
I actually
the
floated
person
that
giving
idea.
labor.
Someone can take this idea if they want. I don't care. They should have a designated room. Yeah. They should have a designated room in the hospital, fully secure, where you can just take glass. You sign a waiver, of course. Just break whatever's in there.
An anger room.
An anger room.
Yeah, they have those. Not at this particular hospital, but like I know there's one in Rockville.
They don't have it, and when
At
I
the
asked
hospital.
when I asked this is the great response. When I asked the person, is there anything that around here that someone can relieve stress, like, work out, just get out some frustration. They said no, but they can call the pastor for me if I'm interested. Which is a great response, because that's a very calming, thing from, the Adventist hospital. But I don't think that she picked up on the fact that,
if you wanted to exert energy,
yeah, if I wanted to get out some pent up frustration, that seeing a pastor was not the thing for me to do at that time. No offense to pastors and the message that they're trying to put across, but sometimes people just need to hit something.
Release.
Yeah.
Hit objects.
Hit objects, not another person. That is wrong. Okay, hitting other people is wrong. Unless you are wearing secured gear and you're boxing or something, and that's your paid profession. But not for you.
There were two real restaurant examples. One is when you get up to go to the bathroom, and all the food arrives, like that trick of like we're all waiting for the food. That was you leaving and my water breaking. The second was the head nurse who came in around like 3-ish to say like, thank you for choosing our hospital. We didn't have a choice.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Is there anything we can? It's like when the GM or the floor manager comes to your table at the end of your meal, like, and how was everything, and how was your wait staff, and like any suggestions for the future. It really did feel like in that moment it was a business and not a thing, a service. I don't know, a service provided to help us give birth. So dad came, you went out, mom was also there. You guys hung out, stood in front of the car, chatted for a while, got bit by mosquitoes. Some guy tried to park. There was a altercation.
Yeah, talking to my in-laws was a good pause. They came out, got my mind distracted a little bit.
Gave me a break from your freaking out.
Yeah. Did you just sleep while that was going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I was probably out there for maybe like an hour or so, and then came back in. Yeah, and Footer was gone, and I believe they had switched over to Dr. Band,
who is my actual OB,
right?
Dr. Band,
who
looks like Saw,
looks like Saul Goodman
from Better Call
or
Saul.
Jimmy McGill, whichever you're watching.
He's a really like comfortable, nice demeanor.
Yeah. So that was like maybe in the 3:00 hour, and he checked and he was like, oh, he's very positive. Said that the dilation was getting close to 8 or so. We're getting there. They started using other terms like she's op B, op A. I didn't know what that meant. So
I didn't hear it.
That's when he, around just after 4:00 is when he left, and Christine, not Elsa, was helping you adjust with the peanut. Maybe she changed your catheter, or emptied your bag or something.
There was a different other nurse who came in for Christine So at one point they also put like the opposite of a catheter into my uterus because I was
Right.
losing too much
You
water.
had a regular IV, you had the Pitocin, you had the
Epidural.
epidural, and you had a more fluid actually being because
I had a
they
catheter
because with
out.
the water breaking, as we said, you had so much fluid, he still he still needed fluid to work his way down. It's like you can't,
So I was leaking fluid.
yeah, you were leaking fluid out, and they were
So
changing your pads every
yep.
now and
So
then.
they basically put a, I don't know what the opposite of a catheter is called, but they put that into my uterus to provide him more fluids as needed.
Right.
Um, it's just a whole mess of like wire. Plus there was the like TV remote wire and my epidural pen,
Things were getting all tangled
buzzer,
up.
my cell phone that I wanted to keep like
Keep
within.
charged.
I couldn't even get around to the other side of my body. So every time they turned me, I had to like make sure that everything, the armband to check my blood pressure. So every time they turned me, I had to put it on the other arm.
Sometimes they were forgetting to do that, and I would help. I would have
Yeah,
to do it.
one of us would just. So really backtracking to Wednesday, um, barely like an hour into the whole thing, I derobed. Like I was just naked. I might have had a sheet every once in a while,
Yeah, because
for other people's
if you
discomfort.
had to worry about also keeping your gown and shit on at that time, that would not have fly for me.
My rationale is all of these people are in the medical industry, deal with bodies all the time, and will have their hands in me at some point. So why am I upset that they can see my bare body? Um, it is not an uncomfortable thing for me to be naked. So there was a woman who came in to help Christine out, Nurse Christine, because they're busy, and she did something, and then said, "Let's take the peanut ball away for a little bit." And I was so mad at her because it like condensed all the
Yeah.
pressure down when my and I couldn't. What I ended up doing was taking my arms and picking up my one knee and literally holding it there because if I let it go, it would flop. And it just put pressure on all the like parts that were already feeling uncomfortable. So when Elsa or Christine came back, I said, "Can I have my peanut back?" And they basically put it back together the way that it was like
Yeah.
opened up. And I had that going all the way up until delivery, basically the peanut. I
So
want
back
one of
to
those peanuts.
so back to 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Okay, so Dr. Band had left. Christine was helping with the peanut,
Said
getting
it
you
was
shifted.
looking good.
She was like, "Things are looking good. We're progressing. We were at 8. We were at like 4. This is 4 o'clock.
We didn't get to
So I
9
guess
yet.
at 8 o'clock in the morning we were probably at 4. So we had gone 4 centimeters or so. Maybe we were at 9. I'm not sure. We were close. And Dr. Band said we were gonna check on you in an hour, about an hour, because
So
that's how
5.
often the checks have been because they usually flip you over around an hour or two.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's also when we had the conversation with Christine, and she said about don't try to hold anything, just try to relax, try to just let it happen.
Breathe
So
through it.
breathe through it, and she said, it'll probably be a little bit more than an hour, maybe closer to 2.
Didn't it?
And
I'm sorry. Didn't at one point was it Footer or was it Band who was in a C-section and was like unavailable?
Band had a C-section that
Yeah,
was rescheduled from a different time, so yeah, he was
he was
unavailable.
unavailable during this time, so it was just
It was earlier. It was
okay,
earlier.
okay, okay.
So it was around that 4 o'clock hour. Christine gave us the tip, said it would probably be closer to 2. So I
2 hours.
said 2 hours. So I was like, all right, I know we're getting close. We need time to kill. So I said, let's put on Shang-Chi because I know that we like that movie. It's about 2 hours long. That's a good way to kill time. So I set up the movie on Disney Plus on my phone, and I tried to set it up so that you could see, but you were like, I'm
My
not
eyes are
gonna.
closed.
Oh yeah, you had already said your eyes are closed for the whole time. So, but you were like, I'll listen. I already know the movie. So
Mm-hmm.
I all the effort I did to set it up around the chords was
It was
pointless.
so kind. You were trying to get it right in front of my face because I wasn't even wearing my glasses, so it means you couldn't have watched the movie.
Yeah.
But um,
So I put it over on my desk, or the side
little
table,
table.
um, my little corner that I had set up for myself. Um, I poured another drink, poured
Just
another
listen.
Crown and Gatorade, and we got it rocking. But
You like narrated, like they're at this
yeah,
part, they're on the bus.
so as that's happening, I'm holding your hand, and I'm noticing that like every few minutes you're like grabbing my hand a little bit more intensely.
Hmm.
So then I look back over at the screen, and I can start to see these like little peaks and valleys, and I'm looking at the time period, and I'm like, okay, the increase is happening about every there's happening twice in a 5 minute cycle because the little grid was like 5 minute increments, and I could also see his heart rate spike up. Right, baby's heart rates usually run higher anyway, usually like in the 140 to 160, but when you would start to get those spikes, his heart rate would go to like 170, 180, sometimes 190. So I was like getting a little concerned,
Hmm.
but also I was like, well, it's not going down, it's going up, which means
They were worried
active.
about his heart rate dropping.
Dropping would be the concern
Got it.
because of the Pitocin. Um,
Got it.
and then I started to understand that the top rate, the top bar was him, his heart rate. The bottom bar was the contractions, and there was a number there before, but the number on Wednesday night and most of Thursday was generally like 15 or below,
Hmm.
which I didn't know what 15 of what. How do they measure this? But throughout Shang-Chi, those numbers
The
started to
movie.
go from you know from like low in the single digits to like peaking at like 20 something, sometimes peaking at 30 something,
Oh.
sometimes peaking at 40 something,
Oh.
sometimes getting to 60 or 70.
Ah. All the
um
while, don't push, just relax your body.
yeah, so I came up with this like phrase of, what did I say?
It's just on repeat.
I said,
Breathe,
breathe,
relax.
relax, let your body do the work. That's what I tried
Yeah.
to say.
Just
um
on mantra repeat.
because that's when I started to realize that those contractions were once again the canal opening, him coming down, getting closer, because Dr. Band kept saying we need him to come further down, we need him to get lower,
Mm.
um, which we had thought had been happening throughout the week just from looking at you, but not to the degree that we needed it to be. So
Yeah, we kept checking my fupa like all throughout the week. Like it looks lower. Like it doesn't look like anything.
so you were trying to be real slick because I kept trying to tell you that, like, because I think they also said that when they come back, things, we might be ready to go. So you, miss in disbelief of everything, kept saying, I kept trying to say, hey, we're like a quarter of the way through the movie, so like we're almost done, and she's like,
Okay,
nah,
I'm
nah,
gonna do this.
no, no, no.
At one point, you said we're more than halfway done the movie, and then later you told me it had it had 108 on one side of the time strip and 107 on the other time of the time strip.
Okay,
So that's so unfair to be like we're more than halfway done. We're 1 minute more than halfway done the movie.
listen. And that is in total runtime, first of all, right, including credits.
Credits.
So we were probably 15 minutes less than that. And for anyone who's seen Shang-Chi, they were in Ta Lo already.
But there's
So
a whole there's like
yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah, there's many acts,
so
but there were
I
many
I
acts
know I
beforehand.
know the movie well enough that them getting to Tal Lo is
There's still some
there's
left,
there's a lot left.
a lot left, but a lot has already happened. A lot's already happened, right? We're not going to spoil the rest of Shang-Chi for anyone
Oh
who
my
hasn't seen it.
gosh.
So by the time they were in Ta Lo, more than halfway through the film,
Mm.
per runtime and per active time in the film, both still more than halfway through. Um, your contractions were basically averaging probably at a 40, meaning they were at their low point, they were getting down to like in the teens, and then as they were going up, they were getting up to like 60 or 70.
Jeez.
um his heart rate was getting up to like 180,
Mm.
and I started to get a little bit concerned because at one point, like, there were, once again, sometimes I wouldn't see anything with his heart rate, but that would make sense because the heart monitor that was on you to monitor him was in a fixed location. Ideally, if he's moving down, he's moving away from the heart monitor, so it's harder to get a good
Oh,
reading.
they had put the band one back on, which was
Right,
another thing they kept having to switch
right.
back and forth when they flipped me.
So I didn't want to really disturb anything because I was kind of concerned about seeing it, but I knew that that's probably a good sign. And it would blip back and forth. Like he would go off, then it would come back on.
So you kind of move up and down, you think?
Not I don't maybe moving up and down, but I I'm not exactly sure how the reading works. But he was coming in and out of reading, but at some points your contractions were hitting like 90, then it would be like 100, and then it would like there would be no numbers. So I started to realize that
So scale of
I
100?
think 100 was the top of the scale. So by the time we were hitting 70 and 80, which was during the final fight scenes and during when they were getting back,
The dragon doing all the.
this was about 5:45 at this point. Um, then
we finished the movie.
we finished the movie. Literally, as we finished the movie, uh, Dr. Ben came back in. Christine came back in.
More nurses.
More no, well, not yet.
Not yet.
He came in and he said, "Okay, how we doing?" And you were like still groggy, and I was like, "Yeah, I said, hey, yeah, the like monitor, like like the baby's moving away from the monitor, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, so if he's moving down, you're not gonna be able to see, it's not gonna read all the time." And I said, "Oh, okay, so it's probably good, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, so let's see." So he went down and did a check, and he was like, he said, "Oh, we're at another turn that I didn't know," but then I knew things were getting real because he was like, "Call in so and so, call in so and so," and then Christine called in a couple people.
I remember hearing Christine on the phone saying, "If there are any additional nurses, please come to room 5."
And then they turned the spotlights on, which was like, "Oh shit, it's getting real."
For 24 hours, we were in a very dim lit, cocooned room, and then all of a sudden, like, and you could hear the sound of the
sound
light,
of light, yeah,
like come on.
It's warm too, right? Was it warm?
And I do remember in all of that like
Kinda waking up a little
uncomfortable
bit.
pain, feeling like this has to be it because they wouldn't turn the lights on otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But then Dr. Ben left again, so I was like, oh, it's not it.
Well, we were prepping. Everyone was prepping, so they were prepping the stirrups. They were getting more people in.
They were scooting me
scooting
closer,
you, yeah, getting you in the right body position.
So the bed does this thing where like half of it drops away, half of it becomes stirrups and knee holders and so on, like transformed into the delivery bed.
So about 6 o'clock, maybe a little shortly after 6, is when Band and Christine, maybe even Elsa had returned, maybe, but then we started to get the instructions on what the pushing and breathing is going to be like.
Christine did most of that.
And
she I thought I was, again, like disbelief of everything. I thought I was doing it all wrong because of the way that she was instructing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, don't do that, do this. And like I couldn't, so like they said bear down, but don't push out your butt. Hold your knees, but don't squeeze your knees. Like all of it felt very contradictory. Like hold your breath, but don't push your face. Like,
so what do you think was the advice that made it all click for you on how to push? What muscles to try to engage?
Dr. Ban had come back at that time and had placed his hand in and said, push my fingers out.
His fingers out.
And I, like, how? So just trying to focus on that was more helpful. And then just getting into that rhythm, the last bit of advice that was helpful was the like when to intake the breath,
mm-hmm.
and then how to hold it. And then originally I was trying to like push out the breath and take more in really fast, but the advice was take a huge breath out and then a big breath in and then bear down again. That was the most helpful.
So circling a little bit back, the reason Christine said to relax is because we need all of your energy for when we're pushing.
Mm-hmm. So it's push time.
It was push time. And understanding the contraction monitor, as you would be like, and they would be like, okay, here we go.
That was
the contractions were at that point, were starting back up, and they were at like 20 to 40, but going into like 100. So basically, what we were feeling at the beginning of Shang-Chi was like the very early onset of what you would need, what your marker was to then push when it was time. But only when the contractions were peaking at a level of like 100 or
Was
whatever,
I
whatever.
told to take a breath and push?
Excuse me. So once we got the push time and your contractions started to get up to that level, then you would push. So you're basically pushing while the contractions were peaking at 100, which would last for not really a whole minute, but like a little bit less.
Long enough to try and take a, a deep breath, a 10-second push, and exhale, a deep breath, and repeat that 3 times. That's about a minute.
Okay.
I didn't successfully get it to
Right,
3 all
right,
the
right.
time,
Because
but
the
towards
the
the
first
end,
the first several times you were working on your breathing and getting it down, and you know he kept saying, we're close. Dr. Band, very encouraging, very encouraging. Um, so he's at the end.
really
Christine is
liked
over
how
here,
tall I was, 5'7". Apparently that was somehow
and
helpful.
he liked calling you Deborah because he
Just
knew.
the one time, let's pause real quick. He came in during like go time, during lights on. He had already seen us multiple times and referred to me by actual name. But then when it was time to push, he said Deborah, and it wasn't a joke. It was an accidental slip, but it was enough of like a comedic relief during a really painful time. And then I also was like, does he know who I am? Does he know
Are
that
we in the right charts?
am I pushing? Should I push now? Did I?
Or should Deborah be pushing?
Right. So later, much later, when he came in the following day to check on us, he said, "How's Deborah doing?" And, ha ha ha. And so the back to the pushing and the 10-second count and the push my fingers out and so on. Again, my eyes are closed. Occasionally, I looked like squinted open to make sure that a knee was on the stirrup or what.
I had your one knee.
You were on this
Christine
side.
had your other knee.
Christine was here.
Band was at the end, had his shield on.
he
Hey, Trudy.
Trudy's down there. When he said, "Do we have any shields?" All I could think was in Star Wars where they say, "Activate the shields." And I was like, "What do they need shields for?" Like, there's a lot of crap coming out.
Yeah,
So,
a lot of stuff, a lot of fluids.
So this is you. Like you're remembering more of the physicality of the
Yeah,
space.
so you did that for maybe 15 to 20 minutes and
Say practice pushing.
but this is effective. You were actually pushing and effective pushing.
Oh, okay.
But still working him down. And probably with, I don't know how many it was, but this essentially I think was really maybe 5 or so pushes left. Because I kept kind of, I'm like here on you.
On my thigh.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of a gown, so I can see Band, and I'm like kind of peeking, but like, I'm not really seeing anything. But Band's like, he can feel it, like everything's here. So then, with 5 pushes left, I look over because I'm talking to you, and I'm like, push, 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 because Band's saying push, I'm yelling push.
You're my coach on the side.
Yeah. So at one point,
in the dugout,
Nurse Christine was like, Philly, you need to quiet down so she can hear Dr. Band. I'm like, okay, but I mean, I need to give her the encouragement.
It was, your voice was the most helpful and encouraging, and it felt like you were in the dugout and I was running bases, and you were telling me to run.
So she said that, and I said okay, but I still reiterated the pushing loudly just
a little quieter.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
But then, with about 5 pushes to go, I saw this little cone-shaped head coming out of there.
And your excitement.
And then
that's what pushed me.
I knew that you needed some sort of visual or instant gratification to because that's how you work.
Instant gratification.
And so once I saw that, I relayed that to you and was like, "Hey, that's one of the hardest parts. We are almost done. we got a few more left, and
I
you were like,
I remember feeling your body push forward a little, so you must have been looking.
yeah,
And you went, "Go, baby!"
yeah. That was the moment where she was like,
Sir.
Phil, so sir, calm down, calm down. But then they had to do some maneuver because he's a big boy, he's a big head, and he's apparently got some big shoulders.
His head is 34 centimeters around. And I pushed that out.
I don't know what that means in percentile time, but that's
13 and a half ish inches around.
yeah, big head boy.
I pushed him out. So his shoulder got stuck.
So I guess the way babies are delivered, it's head. They try to do head first. I'm not sure if it's face down or I think it's face down.
Yeah, he faces my spine.
But then I think in most cases you cannot get both shoulders out at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of like
so. That's when it got really crazy because Band essentially said that we've got to put his shoulder back in and kind of use the fluid to kind of like and pressure to suck him back in to turn him to be able to get him out. So
he used a golf analogy that neither of us understood, but we kind of nodded along.
This was in hindsight he said that, but we didn't. Yeah. In actuality, what it meant was Band was in there with his hands doing some maneuvering. Meanwhile, Christine was on top of the table.
She jumped up on the
shoving,
table.
like doing push-ups on your uterus to kind of create that like plunger effect to kind of suck him back up to get twisted and then come back out.
And I was being told to push all this time.
You just push, and you had gotten it because your face was so like you were like once you got the rhythm and I told you that the head was out, you were like, okay, now and you were just like. It was like looked like so much like Dragon Ball Z. It was like crazy. I really thought you were gonna go Super Saiyan. Your hair was gonna go gold, and like the lights were gonna go out in the room. Shit was gonna go off.
Maybe in the animated film.
In the animated version, we can do that. But a few pushes later, boom, whole thing came out, all purple and weird looking.
Whole thing being the baby.
The baby came out all limp, and I was like,
he was the color of lilac. He
was
pale purple.
It was not good. And then they did something, then
wasn't making sound.
Wasn't making any sound, and then they basically just plopped him on Michelle, and then immediately he started crying. And then, but also he wasn't crying a lot, right?
Covered in gook.
He cried for a sec.
He cried like when he first wakes up, and he's like, Wah!
Yeah, initial cry, and then he just looked, and was just like checking around, and that was it. And then eyes opened, and
probably didn't really see much.
Real quick, Dr. Bam was like, "Would you like to cut the cord?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, give me those scissors." Yeah. Cut
How'd
that
cord.
Feel?
What was that?
Felt like, I mean, I guess some sort of like, I don't know, like
Was it hard to cut or did it slice through?
We had good scissors.
What kind of steak?
Not really like a steak. That's I would say I don't want to ruin any future food for myself.
Oh, all right.
But it was fleshy. Probably the thickness of like a pinky finger.
Oh, I thought it'd be thicker. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. The thickness of someone's finger. Fleshy. But yeah, you just cut it little squirt, but yeah. Cut it, and then they took him right away to get him cleaned up and wiped down.
They said, "Can we take him?" And we said yes.
By take him, it's just to the other side of the room where they had all the birth, after post delivery stuff.
Do all the vaccines.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when they were like, they did the weight reading, and they were like, what? No, do that again. That doesn't like. They were like, yeah,
10-2.
10-2. And Dr. Bam was like, 10-2? No, just make sure there's nothing else on the scale. And she was like, did it again, did her readings. 10-2 again.
Big boy.
Big boy came out of there. And you did get, he had to cut a little bit for you.
Yeah, all the way down. What's that procedure called? But
I can't remember.
I've got stitches to my butt. It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
But I was prepared for it. Maybe not like, I was ready for, like, I knew that would probably be the case because even during like the second trimester, one of the things it said was large for gestational age. So like he was big. So Either way, I was getting some kind of cut.
So at least it wasn't a C-section.
Well, yeah, I wanted to deliver him. So he was out. They brought him back to us. We held him. I held him. You held me. Um, he gained color, and I gained more color.
Yeah.
And then the thing that they like they just kind of gloss over this part because we're so wrapped up in him that there was a lot happening down there. Like the more fluid was coming out.
Placenta.
The placenta, like they asked me to push a few more times, and one of the nurses like flopped on my abdomen to help push that out. And then while we're enjoying him and how beautiful he is, Dr. Band's down there putting stitches in, and you ask, does it hurt?
I asked that?
Yeah, and I was like, it doesn't tickle. Like, I can feel a little bit of that, and so occasionally I would, like, react to the uncomfortableness. And then every 15 minutes or so, somebody would come and push, and just more blood, more fluid would gush out. Really uncomfortable situation, but okay.
Did you at that point though? Did you care about any of that?
No, not like the no, not the uncomfortableness or the like gushy.
From what I could gather from you, while that was happening, you were just 100% locked in on him over on the side, getting his measurements and vaccines and all that stuff.
I was looking that way.
Not all of this happened while he was on you. Still, he was over on the side. So
I asked if he was really here.
Mm-hmm. You said, did this happen? You were
still in disbelief.
And then
they brought him back. Put him on the nipple, and maybe
I think he got some colostrum. Got some of the initial breast juice that comes out. I won't call it milk because it's not the.
It's the first milk.
The first milk. But
yeah.
He was quiet. He didn't cry in the room with us. He just sat there and looked at us.
Looked at you a lot.
Looked around.
That on all the pushing, right? All the pushing only took 30 minutes.
30 minutes of pushing and 23
and a half
hours of other just so letting dilate.
24 hours and then some. And at 7:00, Serena played again. Doubles with her sister.
I think she lost. We didn't really get to watch that match, but
we didn't care actually.
Yeah.
We had it on. It was on the TV, but we were very distractedly focused on someone else. And Gina came in. Gina came right at the right moment. He was out and on me, and she took our first photos. It was really easy, really nice.
And that was almost a week ago exactly. A week ago right now, we started watching Shang-Chi.
It's 4:15 right now, p.m. So in two-ish hours, 2.5 hours, will have been his first full week here.
Was that the hardest thing you've ever done?
Yeah.
And would you do it again?
Yeah, you and I have already said that to each other.
You and I have had this conversation already before. It's not for us.
I said to you that I can describe the pain and remember like all of the happenings of the hospital, but I can't fully remember the actual pain of him coming out. Like, it's blocked. It really truly is mentally blocked. I know it hurt.
Yeah. I
know it was incredibly hard to do. But if I tried to describe how it hurt or how hard it was, I can't. So I could do it again with you. Just wonder what it'd be like with him too. Like a toddler getting in the way, wanting attention as well. God, she's sweet. So we had golden hour. I held him. You asked, can you hold him? Of course, yes, you can. And then you have not stopped holding him since.
Can't let him. I can't put him
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, this is getting ahead of ourselves because I'd like this to be a new podcast recording. But you said you came to me and said we were trying to go to bed, trying to put him down, trying to put ourselves down, and you came to me and said I can't put him down. So, so here we are.
I love him so much.
We're gonna make brownies to celebrate. We're gonna have some burgers tonight.
Oh, I never put the burgers out.
That's it. Let's relax. We'll just do the defrosting method, and then I need to feed him or pump because these hurt.
Well, it sounds like it's a good time for us to go. So whatever we call this, and whatever the theme music was, we're gonna play it on the outro.
All right. Hope you enjoyed.